One more week I have to talk again about Germany. It is quite boring to go on and on about the same thing, as if there were not many other things going on in the church. However, there is no choice but to return to the subject, because in reality what is happening in Germany, especially with the synodal path, with the German Synod, it is very important and will mark the next history of the church. A week ago, Cardinal Marx, Archbishop of Munich, surprisingly presented his resignation to the Pope. Well, actually a week ago it was made public, because he had tendered his resignation on May 21st. The Pope told him, when he presented it, to wait a few days to make it public, and on Friday of last week he told him that he could do it. A great surprise. But this surprise may have had an explanation. 2 weeks before Cardinal Marx presented his resignation at the beginning of May, news had been published that the Cardinal could be denounced for complicity in pederasty. Not for pederasty, but for having in some way collaborated by not denouncing a pederast priest when he was Bishop of Treves in Germany. Not only was he involved, but also Bishop Batzing, the current president of the episcopate and the current Bishop of Treves. In other words, there was a suspicion that the cardinal could be prosecuted for cover-up. The news came out. 2 weeks later, he presented his resignation in secret to the Pope, who in turn took 2 weeks to tell him to publish it. Many thought it was an elegant way for Cardinal Marx to leave, before the accusation of a cover-up could come out. But in addition, in the letter in which Marx presented his withdrawal, his resignation, in that letter he said that he wanted to continue working as a bishop. A cardinal who wants to continue as a bishop, and although he does not say so, it is taken for granted that he is not going to go as bishop to Germany, where he comes from, but to another place. Well, many also thought that he was asking for a position in the Vatican as head of some Vatican congregation. Either he was resigning before the official request for his resignation was made, or he was asking for a position in the Vatican which, among other things, would give him some immunity because he would be a citizen of the Vatican, and if he did not want to, he could not be put on trial. In any case, these are obviously possibilities. But the possibilities have been discussed a lot since the news of his resignation became known last Friday. The Pope is supposed to have been investigating in the 2 weeks between the time he submits his resignation and the time the Pope tells him he can go public. He is supposed to have been investigating what truth there is to the possible indictment of Cardinal Marx if he were to come to trial before a German court. I imagine, and also sure, that they have been investigating, because I repeat, it is a news that was published 2 weeks before Marx presented his resignation. The fact is that after taking another week to give an answer, the Pope has told Cardinal Marx that he must remain in his place as Archbishop of Munich. He has done so with a letter that has been published with very high praise, extraordinarily high praise, very, very high praise indeed, where he even compares him to Jesus Christ in some way, where he shows him his love and affection. But he tells him that he has to remain in his place. He tells him that he has to stay in Munich, and therefore he's telling him that he has to assume his responsibilities. If there were any, that remains to be seen. What will happen if he covered up for any priest? That he has to assume his responsibilities, not only in that case, but also with respect to the German Synod. The Pope does not speak of the German Synod. Marx does. In his letter of resignation, he said that the German Synod is the way out of the situation of chaos, of the situation of deadlock in which the Church is. The Pope does not mention the German Synod at all. But he does tell him that he must remain in Munich and therefore assume his responsibilities. I've had the impression that this highly praiseworthy letter, but telling him to stay in his place and therefore not bringing him or taking him to Rome, this highly praiseworthy letter was a silk glove covering an iron fist. You stay there and you have to go ahead facing what may come to you. God willing indeed that nothing comes against the cardinal, because it would hurt him. I have no desire that anyone suffers, and because it would hurt the church. You stay there, you face your responsibilities, and also the responsibilities that come with having launched the German Synod. But it is also that this week I'm convinced that it is not by chance. Cardinal Casper, German, a very, very close friend of the Pope, as much or more than Cardinal Marx, a man of trust of the Holy Father, liberal, progressive, like Cardinal Marx, has made some very critical statements against the German Synod. The same week in which the Pope tells Cardinal Marx that he has to stay in his place and assume his responsibilities, I repeat, in an extraordinarily complimentary way, the same week Casper says that the German Synod is going in the wrong direction and says that they have not heeded the Pope's letter to the German bishops, a letter in which the Pope insisted that they take more care in the matter of evangelization and that they should not think that the reform was going to come from structural changes. For example, the ordination of women or the acceptance of the practice of homosexuality. Casper, liberal, friend of the Pope, German, against the German Synod, openly, critically, and harshly. The same week the Pope tells Marx, stay in your place. It seems to me, at least, that there is a reading. I do not know if it is the only one, but it seems to me that there is a reading. Especially because a few days ago, when it was already known that Marx had presented his resignation, but it was not yet public, the reform of the Code of Canon Law was made public, which, among other things, makes it clear that that person, supposedly a bishop, who tries to ordain a woman priestess or deacon, because it speaks of holy orders, that person is automatically excommunicated. Criticism of the German Synod by a person very close to the Pope, Cardinal Casper. Keeping Cardinal Marx in place to assume his responsibilities, including those of the German Synod, and others of a criminal nature which God forbid should come, and then the Code of Canon Law. I believe that the Pope is sending a very clear message to the German bishops, to the Catholic Church in Germany, but in a special, particular way to the German bishops, and he is telling them, I will not give in to your pretensions. Do what you want, but I will not give in. The Church will not give in. If this is so, if this interpretation of mine is correct, it seems to me to be an extraordinary piece of news, something that justifies that once again we have to talk about Germany. See you next week, God willing.